In this very abridged API training, I'm gonna go fast here, guys, so I'll explain as I go. But I'm in a live script with you guys, a Python script to set the location on our Meraki devices. So again, in my demos, I show this nice little map here. I can only put devices on the map because I've given them an address, right? Some of you have many networks and many pieces of equipment, and clicking through every single device might be painful. And so again, I can't tell you how many dashboards I log into where you know, I have what I think is this very helpful map of, hey, here's where my devices are, here's how many there are, here's their status. So we just did a deployment for a retirement community in Utah. They had 130 access points. Did not want our technicians to sit there and input addresses on 130 access points. So we wrote a script, I already had one written. So again, one of the great things about Meraki is that all of these are accessible via API. An API is application programming interface, and that's just a programmatic way, right? So the dashboard is very much a click, GUI style interface to where, if you more want a script or a programming language to interact with gear, we would do that via API. So Meraki has this awesome API documentation. Just be aware there are two versions of the API. 0 is kind of the older one, and version 1 went live last April. So we kind of deprecated the 0. So if and when you're looking around and things don't match up, make sure that you are on version 1. So again, the documentation's really good and kind of broken down into devices, network, and organization, and then down in your individual appliances. So first thing is we need authorization, right? We need an API key. So I already showed you under organization and settings, that's where we enable API access for our organization. And then under your actual user, under the profile, is where we generate our API keys, right? So here's our API access, right? So I do have 2 sets of keys already created. That's all that you can create. So, you guys would log in, you'd see a create button. You click it, it gives you a key. It shows you the key one time. So keep track of that key. Otherwise, you get these nice 4 digits that don't do anything for you. So it does give you a big scary message to say, hey, this is the only time I'm going to show you the key. Of course, you can revoke it, but if you have scripts all over the place that are using it, that could be painful. So again, kind of a warning there. So again, we need the key, and then of course we need to enable it for our organization, which again was down at the bottom here. So once we have our key, then we come in and we need the base URL. So all the Meraki API endpoints, we're gonna use this URL as the base. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna come in and let's get all the organizations that our key has access to. So the first tool that we're gonna use here is called Postman. This is just a really generic, easy tool to allow us to do API requests. So I came in and created what's called a collection, and then these are separate kind of API calls. So first thing I did is I came in and I edited the collection, and I said, hey, use this API key for all of these, right? So which of course I will be changing after this webinar since I don't want you guys messing around in our dashboard. But again, this was the key that I generated yesterday for this. And then as you saw in the documentation, that key needs to be present with every request we make, right? So here's that base URL, and then /organizations, right? So that's gonna match up with our documentation, right? Get organizations, here we go. So let's make our first API request. Send. And we get back the result, right? So Matrix Networks is the organization my key has access to. Of course, if you have access to multiple organizations, it'll all be listed here. And each organization has a unique ID. This ID is important for all other requests for this organization. So let's say I want to get the networks in my organization. So I go under, organizations and networks, right? Get organizations in a network. So organizations, organization key, networks. So I go put Postman, I can take my network ID and get networks, API, organization. You can do variables here, a little fancy for what we're doing, but again, if I paste in my organization ID, here's each network. right? So demo, here's the main network, kind of gives me some information about, the product types, which of course I showed you today, organization ID, and then each network has a network ID. If I'm looking at the devices in the network, I go back to the documentation and I say networks and devices, right? So here's the network ID, and devices. So if I go back to Postman, and I already have this little preloaded here. So today we're going to be setting the address on our demo gear. So just to show you guys the prior, we do have our demo environment that we use for training and labs and the such. So if I come look at the appliance, this will be the MX appliance. Yes, indeed, here we are, in Milwaukee, Southeast Portland area. So we are going to be updating this address to something else. Again, out of the box, this is set to nothing. When I set to nothing, we don't get this awesome capability to use the map. And I often don't see it updated because if I sell you 10 switches, the last thing you want to do is sit there and copy and paste an address into 10 switches. I don't blame you. So Meraki has an SDK, software development kit. It is in Python. You can use any language you want. If we have, PowerShell people that love to use, invoke web requests and invoke reset method, again, you can use these, and I kind of showed you, right? We get all of these, but Meraki doesn't make us have to go through all this documentation and read the JSON outputs and all that. They use this SDK, the software development kit, to do that for us. So again, the only supported one is in Python. Version 0 had it in Node, Python, and I forget the third language, maybe Ruby or something. But again, Python is what we're working with today. So if anybody's written Python before, we have PyPy. This has all of our packages. Here's the Meraki package. So first step, install the Meraki package. So this is Visual Studio Code. This is what I write all my scripts in. So here's a terminal. One thing about my environment, I use WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux. So I do not install Python on my main machine. Windows 10 has an awesome Linux container you can use. The technical here, you guys could just go download Python and install it on Windows. I choose not to develop that way. But if you, did install it, right, we do our pip install Meraki. Again, this gives us that library that does all the heavy lifting for us to make our scripts a lot easier. So as expected, I have installed because I do a lot of our scripting. So again, that's kind of the first step, right? So now we are armed with our API key. We are armed with the Meraki library. So now we're gonna plagiarize. That's the quickest way to script, guys. So first thing we're gonna do, again, we're building a script here to change the address. We're gonna import the library, right? Step 1. Step 2, we're gonna make a dashboard connection. This is kind of the shorthand that actually creates our dashboard connection. However, we need to give it our API key. So I'm gonna put that in there, and I have the key hidden over here that I will promptly be changing. And again, the documentation runs through this, guys. I'm running through this really fast. But again, this dashboard object essentially allows us to interact with all those different APIs, right? So import the library. Here's the key I want to use. Here it is. You guys will see that it logs a lot. It logs way too much. It makes everything super noisy. So because Visual Studio Code is awesome and knows about everything in the library, I want to suppress all the logging. All right. So this is going to allow us to have, again, this dashboard access. So the first thing, just to make sure this is working, let's make sure that we can get our organizations. So some more plagiarism that we can do here is if we go into organizations, right? I kind of showed you this in Postman. They have these templates, Python library, right? So you can just copy and paste this, right? Again, plagiarism, easiest way to code. So if I save this, Visual Studio Code allows me to just run this down this terminal. It's gonna run it, and boom, here's our JSON output, right? This matches exactly what we saw in Postman. So again, just kind of a sanity check that, hey, we're able to query the API here. So let me go ahead and just do some shorthand. here to save some time. We actually don't need that. I'm going to comment that out. So again, what we're trying to accomplish here is get all the devices in our demo network, loop through them, and set the address, right? That's all we're trying to do here. So we want to update a device, right? That's the goal here. So first, we need the serials of everything, right? So sorry, I jumped ahead. So networks, I want to get all of my devices on my network, right? I want to get them all, loop through them, and update them. So again, plagiarism is the easiest thing to do here. So I can go ahead and just grab this code from the documentation and this network ID. Again, I can go query the network IDs, or again, if I'm just doing this really fast, because I have 20 minutes to demo something fairly advanced to you folks, right? I can just copy and paste that out of Postman, right? You guys can imagine, and I can get the networks and get the devices and loop through them using awesome logic in Python. That's how I do that in production, but for a refresher class, it's gonna have to do. So this response object is now gonna have all of my devices in this network. And again, that network is going to be all of my demo devices. No, it's not, I chose the wrong network. Let's try this again. Demo gear, that's the network I want. Let's just sanity check this. And that's all my demo gear. Awesome. All right, now we have the right network ID, guys. So now I do a Python loop for device and response. So that's going to loop through my response, which again is going to be exactly this, like I see in Python, right? So it's going to have, the current address, the current name, the current model, the current serial number, so on and so forth. So great, I'm gonna loop through that. And again, the whole point of this is to update that address. So now if you go in the documentation, go to devices, update device. So I'm gonna need its serial number, plagiarism, here we go. So again, this is update device. It needs to know the serial number, that's identify the device, and then all the fields I wanna update, right? So I can update a whole ton of fields. I mentioned that job with 100 APs. We did not want to set 100 static APs on the APs. We're able to take a CSV, import it, loop through it, and set the LAN IP. Set the tags, right? You can set all kinds of stuff. You can put it on the map. So again, as far as automation, it's really easy to grab devices and update all of these. Just a lot less tedious than trying to do it through the actual dashboard itself. All right. So first we need the serial. I just happen to know in that device, there's something called the serial, right? We can see it here in Python. This is how we access it, right? So in that JSON, I want to grab the serial, right? So this is a device, and here's the serial. Just proof there. And let's spit out the name just so we know what we're working with, right? So let's just go ahead and print the name. Awesome. All right, so we have the serial. We're not renaming the AP. We could, but again, we already have nice friendly names. We are not updating tags. We don't care about that. We do want to set the address and the latitude and longitude. I happen to grab one just to make things easy here. And we're going to put our demo gear in the happiest place on earth. It will show up in Disneyland. Awesome. So the address, we're going to set the address. And the latitude, we're going to set that. And we'll set the longitude. All right, so quick refresh what we're doing here. We imported the library. Here's our key. We made a connection to the dashboard. We cheated, and we already had the network ID that we wanted to get the devices from. We're then looping through all the devices. We will print out the name. We will assign the serial number here. We already have our address and our latitude, longitude. And then here's the actual update device query. Serial, address, latitude, longitude. And we can say, so happy now. So we should get the name of the device and then the fact that they are happy now. All right, let's see if I made any typos or if we did it. There's the device, device name I should say, and it is so happy now. Next device, happy. My firewall, happy, and my demo switch will be happy. Awesome. So if I go back to the devices and actually just go look at a network-wide map now, here's our demo gear. Oh, come on, Google Maps. All right. So here is Disneyland. Our devices want to be really happy, so I put them on the Matterhorn. Here's the Matterhorn. So again, that's how easy it is to run and update the location information. Obviously, with just the bare bones shell of this script, I can update anything on any device, right? So again, this can be management IP, actual name of the device, right? Tags that I want to do, right? Obviously, this is kind of a little silly demo, but I mean, I could come in and get an organization, loop through all my networks, loop through all the devices in the network, right? So again, when you're dealing with a large amount of devices, even 10, 20, I would dare you to rival me in my plagiarism of code here to set that all via the dashboard if you had 10 devices even, right? And then the great thing about code is once I write it once, it's easy to dust that thing off and go do it again. The API is extremely powerful. I mean, I can loop through like all my switch ports, like for CRC errors, right? I can get the event log, right? So if I want to like parse out, blocked web pages, I mean, the amount of information that is available for all these devices is absolutely huge. So again, if I go into a switch, I can get switch ports, get the routing, update routing. I mean, there are some things you cannot get through the API, but I mean, it is really powerful how much you actually can get through the API, right? On the wireless, you could script out, wireless health. If you had a bunch of different networks, you want different RF profiles on. I really haven't found much in terms of being able to do bulk updating for devices that I wasn't able to get to. And I know that we have plenty of Meraki-based MCAS clients here, right? So as you know, a huge part of our MCAS service is the capability to go through and look at all the uplinks into your MX appliances. How do you think we do that? We actually use appliance uplink status. So we've done full automation, fairly involved, but essentially it runs through in your organization, and we store the serial numbers of all the appliances that we want to have access to, and we do the statuses, and you'll see here, it responds with the uplink, and this is the wrong. Oh, that's for the organization. Sorry, I'm trying to do this live. Might be that one. All right, well, it's buried in here, but we do utilize APIs. It gives us back the link, the packet loss and latency of all of your internet connections. So again, we do use this to monitor MCAS, and that's something we can do that at scale, right? Is utilize the APIs. Again, my guy's sitting there clicking through all your dashboards every 5 minutes to verify the health of the circuits. And again, if we have any big leaf clients, we do that the same way. They have an API, so on and so forth.